So a very good evening to everybody and welcome to IoT Matrix. A very good evening from India, a very early morning to folks in Silicon Valley, a sort of a latish morning to folks in New York, maybe good afternoon to people in Europe and elsewhere. Um, this is a session that we plan to have on what's called the interconnected world and implications for all. For long we've been talking about the network of networks, which was the internet, and then the network is the computer. For that, or rather, the computer is the network that Sun Microsystems pioneered about 40 years ago. And over time, what's happened is, while lots of initiatives and projects have gotten started, it is only now that the true interconnected world has emerged. When people, things, governments, companies, and all kinds of sectors have all become intertwined thanks to the proliferation of IoT and networks and all kinds of other devices and technologies, whether it's AR, VR, AI, and everything else. So, and it's also, we are seeing a situation where there's a big merging of the physical, the digital, and the biological. And all kinds of thinkers have been talking about what does this actually mean. And the general prognosis seems to be that we are indeed living in a matrix that is omnipresent. It's almost as if we are all inside a simulation where the objective and subjective realities merge. And to talk about it and to understand the opportunities, challenges, possibilities, we have with us this evening two extremely eminent people, highly experienced, great deal of expertise and experience. My pleasure to warmly welcome first Venk Shukla, who is the founding general partner of Monte Vista Capital, has been president of TIE Silicon Valley, chair of TIE Global, and I'm sure most of us know him or know of him. So I will just leave it at that. So warm welcome to you, Venk. And joining Venk today is a friend, Vaibhav Parikh, senior partner with Nishit Desai Associates. He's based out of New York. He's one of the veterans of cross-border M&A, private equity deals, and a bunch of other interesting transactions. He's been seeing and observing what's happening in the world of law as all of these new emerging technologies create a mishmash of opportunities, possibilities, and challenges. So let me start off right off the bat. And what we have is, I think we have about an hour. So the format we will follow is maybe we'll have our conversation for about 40 minutes. Thereafter, open it up for questions, and which we will have either one of you or both of you respond to. All right. So that sounds all right.
Yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
great. Good to be
So
here.
wonderful. Thanks. Thanks, Venk. And hi, Vaibhav. You guys are seeing what's happening around the world with all this mishmash of technologies, the physical, digital, biological, upending things, and all of that. Uh, from where you sit today, what would you say are the opportunities, the possibilities, and the challenges, so that we can get the ball rolling on this conversation?
You know, uh, technology industry historically uh, has focused on, cheaper, faster, better. Uh, and that has been the relentless focus of technology industry from the very beginning, and especially in Silicon Valley. So, so when suddenly, uh, with Facebook and Googles of the world, suddenly the and they didn't care, you see, about one of the issues that they never had to consider, technology planners, designers, thinkers, was ethics and morality.
Right.
The strategic focus was, can I make it 10 times cheaper? Can I make it 2 times faster? Can I improve the user experience and stuff? And so when all these Facebook related kind of things started happening, the technology industry was caught flat footed,
Right.
because it's not in the DNA of a technology company to worry about ethics or morality. I mean, that was something that New York Times and Wall Street Journal is and the news media and CNN need to worry about. Uh, all that we worry about is, can we make it cheaper, faster, better?
Right.
And now suddenly you see the focus turns to technology industry and saying that, hey, if you are responsible for it. For the longest time, technology industry said, no, 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 we are just a platform,
Right.
right? This is
Right.
somebody else's problem. And now you are suddenly, you see, after all these denials and, half denials, and finally technology industry is coming to terms with the fact that they have become such an important part of the society that they share the responsibilities for, the ethical, moral, uh, you know and they share some of the responsibility for all of those things. And it's a very disconcerting feeling because they're not trained for that, they're not optimized for that, it's not in the DNA. So the only industry, recent technology industry, that uh, has been a sort of an exception to this is autonomous driving. In autonomous driving, when you're building that, you have to consider ethics and morality. You have to
Right.
grapple with the question that if your car is going and there is a dog is in front of you, if you swerve to avoid the dog, would you hit to see a kid is see in the sidewalk?
Right.
And what is preferable to you? What is, how do you program it so that it makes this decision versus that decision?
Right.
So I don't know how many people are familiar with the famous psychology experiment, the trolley experiments
Poly
in
experiment. That's
psychology.
right. Yes.
So, so this is so now this is now I think the industry is finally grappling, you see, with the fact that they need to incorporate ethics and morality into the very fabric of the products that they are building.
Got it.
And this is a sea change. This
Right.
is this transition is not going to be easy,
Fantastic.
but but you cannot get away from it now.
Got it. So what you're saying is that the quote unquote the humanity aspect has become increasingly meshed with the technology, and it's in a sense the marriage of not just the physical with the digital, but also the biological and the emotional. And
Yeah,
these are very important issues to worry about.
right.
Vaibhav, from your standpoint, the points that Venk made clearly, touch upon issues that till recently nobody really worried too much about. How would you characterize the changes that you're seeing around you? I think you need to unmute yourself, perhaps, Vaibhav. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, now we can.
So I'll make 2 points, right? The one on challenges which Venk said, and Venk very rightly said that's a trend we are also seeing. What we call a trend towards self-regulation. See, historically, law was always behind technology, which means that technologies kind of created a lot of new opportunities, and the policymakers actually had to understand before they can decide what policy they can make. And by the time they made policy, the law actually kind of moved forward. So the new thing what we are seeing is more like self-regulation, because companies, the industries will have to come together and do a self-regulation so that they keep the industry in check, so that the lawmakers don't then come very heavily on them, citing like how, for example, recently, there is a case for splitting Facebook because Facebook has become too big. Now, those are issues which will come, which law policymakers or lawmakers will actually come with make. But till then, if industry comes with self-regulation, then that may be the best way for them to resolve all these issues which come in. Now, we're already seeing, for example, in India itself, the advertisers have self-regulating code. Similarly, the OTT guys, government is asking to create a self-regulating code, so that they don't need to come and create laws for them. Similarly, let's say the cryptocurrencies, they really need self-regulating code. AI, there is a ethical, what they call ethics by design, which is being created. So you need to now inbuild ethics and law before even law comes into picture, into your strategy, into your development, into your applications. because you don't want to wait for government to come and shut you down. You rather say, this technology can be used for multiple things. I will limit it so that it can be used ethically, morally correct, and in compliance with law, so that we can actually grow better. So that's the point which I am also seeing. Secondly, I just want to make one more point on opportunity. Uh, you know, Very interestingly, what we saw, let's say, 15 years ago, when Amazon and others came up to picture, e-commerce increased, social media increased, because some of the enablers for them, whether it is broadband or others, actually came into picture. Now, similarly, a lot of new enablers are coming in, whether it is 5G, whether it is some of the AI, IoT, which is again enabler for AI. So a lot of new technologies which are coming in will actually see a lot of things which were just in papers right now will actually become a reality, and that will be a great opportunity. And we always say, with any new opportunity, any new technology, new business model, there is always a legal challenge. So those challenges will always need to be looked with what new is coming in and how we need to work.
Got it. So, so the point you're making is that there are challenges, there are opportunities, and with the merger of new technologies and, the points that Venk had made, it's something that we all need to think about. Which means that, clearly we are seeing disruptions taking place today. Thanks to the arrival of technologies, from mobility to fintech to health tech to agri, defense, cybersecurity, biochips, robotics, all of this which drive interconnectedness are also having profound implications on a variety of issues, ranging from privacy to impact on jobs. And clearly, the point you also made about regulators going after many companies and people trying to form self-regulatory organizations and all of that. Minds of governments are being occupied. So if you were to think about this, and again, I'll go back to Venk and see, or at least help the audience consider what are the possible implications. It could be a legal implication, it could be a business model implication for startups and entrepreneurs and others who are operating in this space. One is, of course, the fact that they need to be, let's say, more human, and sort of consider the implications from that front. But from a business model standpoint, from a legal standpoint, how should they configure themselves now?
This idea that you're talking about, data ownership, privacy, and all those things. This is a new variable, and anytime there is a the society begins to value something new, it creates new opportunities.
Right.
It creates new. It's another kind of disruption. So it's another opportunity for startups. So in Silicon Valley, I'm seeing a s- the number of startups that have come up and are being funded that manage various aspects of privacy is just in just last 3 to 6 months, as I have seen, is a very impressive number.
An explosion.
I'm investing is in one that enables enterprises to manage privacy aspect. It's extremely expensive. So I'll give an example. You send an email to some bank or something, it that your email address immediately gets sucked into some database, and
Right.
that database gets stored in some secondary and tertiary storage area somewhere, and
Mhm.
then it goes into a PDF, and then it goes to the marketing department to do their direct mailers, and then it goes to it it immediately goes to 8, 10 different places, and
Right.
it's all automated process. And
Right.
most of the time, the enterprise itself is not aware where all the data is, and yet if if they don't follow the privacy laws, not only do the governments penalize them, but it's really really bad PR.
Absolutely.
No one wants to deal with that kind of a PR. So
Right.
people are spending, say, huge amounts of money hiring people. It's like Y2K. It's like
Right.
the old Y2K problem. You just throw people at the problem, but
Right.
eventually people figure out that there must be a technology to solve this new problem.
True.
And so I think this is a tremendous opportunity for entrepreneurs, you see, to manage various aspects of privacy, even for big companies. I mean, you look at the position that Apple has taken with respect to data and privacy. They're holier than thou. You know, it's giving heartbreaks to Facebook and Google, but
Right.
consumers love that.
Mhm.
Consumers love that, and so that it might have been driven by their inner moral conviction, but it's also a good business strategy.
Right. Right. And Vaibhav, how would you see all this change from a legal and business model standpoint?
So I agree with Venk, right? So this is any restrictions, any challenges can be turned into opportunity. And privacy and data protection is one of the big challenge. Now, this challenge, a lot of people know already about it. A lot of startups are already working on it. GDPR has been there for ages. California has a new law since start of this year. India is soon going to have a law on privacy and data protection, which will create a lot of opportunities for startups. But in my mind, this is just a tip of an iceberg of what data issues we are seeing. In fact, I believe that data issues will be the largest or the top issues which a digital economy will face. And rightly, economists have said that data is new oil, right? Which means that there will be a lot of interesting aspect when it comes to data. Now, privacy is just one aspect, right? There is other thing of data ownership which you talked about, Sanjay. There has been talk here that if it is my data, right, then who owns that data? Now, normally we say, hey, I own the data, but currently the intellectual property laws does not protect fact. My name is Vaibhav Parikh. I stay in particular address, or this is my phone number. Those are not protected. These are not something which I own. It
Right.
can be, somebody can own database, but nobody can own the data. And when that's a situation, when data is something which is important, and ownership questions are being raised, that if you make money out of my data, then who really gets benefit out of it? So data ownership is becoming important. Now, data, you have now synthetic data coming in. Now, that is the another challenges and opportunity. Synthetic data is not real data, but which behaves like a real data. Then the question really comes on from both IP perspective, from privacy perspective, you know, how to regulate that data, and are there any opportunities in that particular synthetic data? Now, data actually will go much beyond. India is looking at non-personal data, which is going beyond privacy, right? So non-personal data regulation is something which India is looking at. In fact, recently, the Joint Parliamentary Commission kind of decided that the current bill which is there in Indian Parliament needs to be broadened up. We need to increase data localization, and we need to increase non-personal data aspects to it. So that issues will get regulated. That will create a lot of new opportunities. Similarly, you have issues on data monopoly and data access, right? Now, data monopoly is always, we have this winner takes all, right? Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, they are taking all the data of you, right? The question is, other people are not getting data accesses. Now, the law will come, which will allow other people to access those data. Data monopolies will need to be kind of, prevented. Now that will give new opportunities, because suddenly new, access data will be there. Now data wars will happen, right? Data alliances will happen. So we are already seeing, US, China, US is blocking all mergers which kind of leak sensitive data to China, or health US citizen data to China. India is banning a lot of apps for similar reasons, from if not for other reasons. At least this is one of the reasons, right? So you are seeing data wars happening between countries. Similarly, you have data alliances, which is going to happen. The US is actually, China is far ahead in AI because of the data which he has. US is really looking at India to provide the data so that they can compete with China. So, you will see data alliances. Now that will create a lot of new opportunities which will come up. So in my view, data, as rightly pointed out, that data is new oil, and how there were oil wars, oil alliances, different aspects of oil came into picture. Similar situation will happen in data. So it's going to be a very exciting world, at least in my mind, when it comes to data. I mean,
You
I've
know,
just taken data as an opportunity, but there are a lot of things like data security and other things which we can talk about. We can
you
go
know,
on.
data is not only the new oil and the new gold, but data is also the new asbestos. It's also very
It
toxic.
can be harmful, yes. And the
Yes.
bad news is, unlike oil and gold and asbestos, data is infinite. So it's
Yeah.
not something that will it keeps multiplying each year.
And and just like how there is a pollution because of oil, there is a pollution because of data.
Precisely. All kinds
One
of
point that Vaibhav made, you see, Sanjay, if it's okay, see, I like
yes,
to kind of, join, or elaborate on that with a different perspective. He talked about data wars and data localization and data alliances. I think this is really a very a profound, it raises very profound policy questions.
yes,
Uh, when Ravi Shankar Prasad was here, that's the conversation I had with him. He wanted to know about data localization and stuff. And the point that at that time I made to him was that we should not copy the data localization laws that Europe has just because we are as prickly as anybody else is, and we should just insist on what everybody else is doing. I think what we should with all the data that's happening in everywhere in the world, what world needs is inexpensive expertise to manage, move, process, interpret, and apply the data. And they would need massive amounts of that kind of expertise. The only place it can come from is India.
right,
India benefited tremendously from this Y2K thing.
yeah,
This is this is a this is a new tremendous opportunity. And if you put any massive restrictions, guess what will happen? People put reciprocal restriction on you to access their data, to manage their data and stuff like that. So India has to be really, really careful. This is a massive opportunity for India. And it should not be localization for the sake of localization. And because ultimately you want the data regime all over the world to be such that Indians sitting in India can access it, can manipulate it, can interpret it, and basically serve the world.
yeah,
So it's that short-sighted kind of a thing which says that no, we are sovereign. If Europe can do it, if China can do it, why can't we do it? We can do it, but we should not be doing it. We
mhm,
should be really looking at this as an opportunity, you see, for us to create the next generation of Infosys and Wipros and TCS.
right, right. And it's a very interesting point you make, Venka. There are a lot of legal implications of that. The enforceability of the Cloud Act and stuff like that. Let me just move on to a question that I think a lot of people are wondering about. With this whole world talking about Huawei and 5G and impact on countries' infrastructure and access to all kinds of new services and everything else. Clearly, there is going to be a big impact. Countries are kind of buckling down on making sure that some people are blocked out of the 5G battle, and others are trying to get opened up thanks to geopolitical considerations, all of it. Now, how do you see this battle of 5G and IoT play out? If you were to, let's say, look into the future of the next 3 to 5 years, how would you characterize this IoT 5G battle, or let's say the playground? How do you see that play out?
You know, you're right. I think the most significant uh, development from the technology standpoint for IoT is 5G.
Right,
And I think this would have a, first of all, I think if 5G becomes really as pervasive and delivers you on its technology promise, you won't need Wi-Fi at your home.
right,
Uh, 5G alone is would be enough, and all the other devices, all new kinds of devices, all new kinds of applications as would show up. Uh, and because of that, I think it will be so pervasive, and this would become sort of a digital backbone, you see, of the country, of the community, of the society. This is going to be a very, very hard fought battle.
Yeah.
This is, when it comes to 5G infrastructure, unfortunately, it's a big guy's game, right? It's a big boys game. So it's not a whole lot that the startups can do in terms of 5G infrastructure. They can do a whole lot in terms of exploiting the new pervasiveness of 5G, and coming up, you see, with the devices and appliances at home and business models and at work that exploit that. But in terms of the basic infrastructure, it's still going to be a big boys games.
Big boys.
Huawei versus Nokia versus Ericsson versus Samsung, and these are really the only four players in the world.
Right.
And China really shot itself in the foot
Yeah.
by strong arming kind of a thing. And with that, with all these things happening, their dreams, you see, of technology dominance of 10 years out, you see, it is gone. Without US and without India participating in anything to do with Huawei or any technologies to come out of China,
Right.
they can forget about world dominance.
True. Very true. I think it's a very, very interesting point you make, and very valid. Vaibhav, how do you see this playing out?
No, yeah, I agree with Venk, right? I personally feel that
That's really too
5G.
much. You have really, we need to have some dispute.
Yeah, I know, but well, the facts are facts, right? 5G will do for IoT what, let's say, broadband did for e-commerce, right? So that is, and when you add up AI along with 5G and IoT, it creates a holy trio, right? In that sense, that they feed each other off, right? 5G will enable a lot of IoT devices that will generate a lot of data. A lot of data will kind of give a fillip to AI, and it will be a viral. So this will be in my mind, this will also enable a lot of other things like AR, VR. I was talking to someone and to a journalist, and he was saying that how things will change in journalism once 5G comes into picture. And when you have there'll be a lot more. The journalism will be a lot more VR and AR video journalism rather than a print journalism. So they are looking at a lot of new things which will be enabled because of 5G. Now, obviously, when that happens, 5G will become very critical infrastructure, and as we are seeing it, right, it is not important. It is very important from national security perspective that a government secure 5G, and because of that reason, we will not see the best technology win or the best company win or the best money win. We will see companies which are more friendlier to the government, where government can trust win in that particular country. Also, because of this issue, and because government may not want to rely on one or two or three boys who are really big boys, I personally feel that open RAN concept will actually pick up, and government will choose that over specific technology like Huawei or Ericsson or Nokia, simply to make sure that they are not just relying on one particular company, which can hold them hostage, if things go bad. So open RAN technology, good chance to succeed, and if that happens, I think there is a lot of play which Indian startups or Indian companies can have, because you will need to secure those. There will be a lot of software which will be written for that particular thing. So when I was talking to Mr. Pai, who is the FCC chairman here, he also agrees that open RAN, right, is something which India and US can work together. So that's something which I feel there is an opportunity and something we need to look into from Indian startup perspective when it comes to 5G. Similarly, data security will become very, very important when you end up looking at 5G, IoT, and AI put together. The data security will be very important, and that will be the other opportunity area from startup perspective.
Got it. Yes. So effectively, I think what you're saying is the need to move away from proprietary or let's say vendor biased technologies to more of an open kind of an interoperable kind of a system, right? And that holds for data as well. It holds for APIs and so on. Coming to if you were to look at a bit of a crystal ball gazing, right?
Can I?
We've talked of and all
Sorry,
that.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, interruption, Sanjay.
Yes.
What you said is very right. I was listening to and talking to a lot of people in telecom industry here. You won't believe that they are all looking at Reliance Jio from India to play an important role in the US on in 5G space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Fascinating.
and a lot of investments have come in Geo, have not just come because of the India story, but also because of what role they can play in global world in 5G.
Right. Right. I mean, what a
I think
dominant player.
that's interesting, Vavo. Can you elaborate on that? That's I don't get that. I don't get that perspective.
When I was listening to the some of the investors, right, their hope is, and again, we also participated in one of the investors. We were lawyers who invested in Geo, and talking to general people in telecom industry. Their hope is that Reliance has developed a lot of new expertise in Open RAN system, and if US builds Open RAN system, they can use Reliance, their expertise, their technology, their manpower in the US industry where they can actually play an important role, in addition to playing an important role in Indian industry.
What you're saying is not just the infrastructure, but it's the provisioning of new kinds of services built on open, interoperable standards, and that
Yeah.
will effectively drive all of this. Which is, I think, if you think about it, it's what the world is sort of trending towards. So-called digital public goods, public platforms that are available, that are open, that are interoperable, and people will build value on top of those. Now, if you
Yeah.
were to, a little more of crystal ball gazing, and we've talked of 5G and all that. There's also this idea about 6G emerging and quantum computing. So over the next 10 years now, not a 3 to 5 year view, but let's say a 5 to 10 year view, um, what would you say are the possibilities? Venk, we'll start again with Venk and then come to you, Weber.
I don't understand much about 6G. I don't even know, you see, what it brings, you see, beyond 5G. I've just not, you see, spent time, you see, learning about that, and probably Vaibhav could educate us on that one. But in terms of quantum computing, I attended to see a lot of this thing conversations with the scientists from Google and from Microsoft. These are the two guys you see who have put the most to see in this kind of research. It's pretty clear that this would be as fundamental a shift as as internet was. I mean, I think this is the possibilities are so endless. So here's what has happened. Uh, the reason that internet has become so big is because computing costs this year are almost down to nothing. The
Right.
storage costs are practically zero,
Mhm.
and that's why a lot of things that are possible today would not have been possible as if 10 years ago.
Right.
And it's all because it's the cost of storage, and the cost of storage is practically zero. Cost of computing is also pretty low. But now, see, with quantum computing, where you know, uh, you know, world has used to sort of incremental advances every 18 months, you see, of Moore's law kind of a thing,
Mhm.
and this completely upends, you see, that the projection and this thing based on Moore's law. Now the amount of computing power that is available to every individual, if and when it becomes a reality, I'm still qualifying it because I'm not sure that this would be as commonplace as just commonly projected to be. But if it does become that way, and you can buy quantum processors off the shelf,
Right.
I think this will have a profound implication. The biggest impact it will have, you see, on security.
Yeah.
Uh, no,
Absolutely.
no password, no this thing, nothing is safe.
Very true. Very true. And then I suppose, one of the other implications outside of security, I'll go to Viva. You can elaborate a bit on that. Uh, because I think the whole idea about content and immersiveness will also change. I mean, how people will interact with systems. That will also be a very, very interesting dynamic. I mean, human man interfaces, the kind of navigation that you might have to do will be pretty much almost matrix-like, is what I'm imagining in the world of quantum computing. Yeah, Vaibhav.
Yeah. So I agree with you, Sanjay, this time, not. Uh, so the point will be that quantum computing will give fillip to a lot of things. Cryptocurrency, crypto security will be one of the issue, but the other thing it will give is also to AI. Because when you look at quantum computing talks about different probabilities, and AI also goes on that round. So what I've been given to understand is that if the quantum computing comes into picture, AI will actually benefit the most. Now, already when you look at processing large amount of data, you require a large processing power, and quantum computing will give that. Plus, there are a lot of other things like in medical industry where quantum computing will become very useful. And the way I look at it, I don't think quantum computing immediately will replace your normal computing power and become general purpose. The quantum computing will develop for specific industry. So it will develop for medical, let's say clinical trials. So it will develop for molecule developments. So it will develop for specific industry, for specific applications. That's what is going to happen first. In at least in the next 10 years, that's what the aim is. It will develop for different things, specific things. So some of the few things which is there, like medical, molecule discovery, AI, security, they are going to be your initial use. And I'm already seeing people interested in actually putting in money. VCs are looking at investing in some of those companies who are working on quantum computing. So that's a good sign.
Got it.
And as far as 6G goes, 6G is at least what I understand is 100 times faster than 5G. So what 5G will enable you to do, 6G will do even better. So I don't personally feel
the reason I ask is that I think China took the bet on 5G and made heavy investments in it, both at the standards level as well as from an R&D technology level, and built organizations that would take advantage of it. So that was a journey that they took. It took them about 10 years to get to where they are today. Similarly, for companies today or countries today who are said, 5G now is pretty much gone. There's no point in trying to become yet another 5G player today. So therefore, is it time for us to start investing and becoming players in the world of 6G? So asking actually from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, so I personally feel that it is unlikely that you will jump 5G and go to 6G.
Right. Got it. Okay. Now, all of these conversations that we've had so far, talking about implications of the interconnected world for data, for AI, 5G, and so on. It leads me to also imagine that in the world of interconnectedness, what would you, because it's a very brand new world, right? People are kind of navigating their way through this. How do you see management itself change? Management of a traditional startup or a small company, or management, let's say, in enterprises? I mean, earlier you had a situation where a startup was essentially a mini MNC. You had two guys in California, two guys in India, two guys in China, etc. Collaborating, working, and building stuff together. But now in this new world, do you actually think that management of these companies themselves will change? Do we need a new class of leaders, a new way to think about building companies? What are your views on that?
Okay, let me go first this time. Sanjay, Weng said it earlier also, right? That companies only thought about how do you make it faster, cheaper, right? And that's a very narrow expectation from the leadership perspective, right? That, okay, how can I just make this company faster, cheaper? Things are changing drastically now. The management will need to now think a lot more deeper. They will need to not just become a good technologist. They did not just good the management person, the leaders. They will need to become a lawyer. They will need to become a policymaker. They will need to become, environmentalist. They will need to become. They will need to wear multiple hats of things which are getting addressed in society in general. Because no longer a situation is there that I will just do this job and that will make me successful. You need to now think of ESG. You need to think of SDG. Again,
Yeah.
ESG, you all know about it,
Right.
on environment side and society and on governance side. But all those things, right? We just discussed that you need to think about ethics. You need to think about other things. All those things will need to come into picture. It already started coming into picture. I mean, it's not something which is new, but when you look at startups, right, they are still very narrowly focused. Now, lot of things, and I was talking about ethics by design. Now, ethics by design is something which you need to incorporate while designing a particular product. Now, when that happens, you can't just think that I will create a best product. You need to create a best product which have incorporated ethics as a part of design. Explainable AI is another thing which from AI perspective world is going towards, right? How do you explain, how do you make the AI transparent so that people understand why it is taking a particular decision, right? If that decision, as Venk was mentioning, right, that if the autonomous car, and if you're going to hit A versus B, what decision you will take. Now, it's not just enough to have a black box which say, I put algorithm and this is a decision you took. You need to be able to explain the decision, right? So that needs to be built in during your development of product. So from startup perspective, the thought process will be much wider. You will need to become kind of a master of all rather than an expert in one, and you will have to build on different resources to do it, but ultimately you will need to put at the time you are developing a product.
Right. Venk?
I think one implication that I see purely from a startup perspective, and I'm seeing that more and more now, is there used to be a bias that the core team should be in one place, and then you see and then on exception basis or on skill set that's absolutely needed to see you hire in other locations. Now, what has happened is that the two things. One is, of course, this COVID thing. Everybody's working virtually anyway, and the second is just the expenses of hiring in places like Silicon Valley have driven this other consideration that it, that I think you should start up from scratch, as a purely virtual entity, which means you start treating, yeah, so the companies that will be successful in this new paradigm would be the one that know how to manage people uh, when everybody is sitting on a computer and nobody is in a physical office where you can will give them perks like massages and free this and free that. And so, what is the implication is of management in a world where everybody is virtual? Because this trend is only going to accelerate. I'm seeing that in the last 6 months, the startups have become far more open to hiring people. Somebody sitting in Cincinnati, somebody sitting in Romania, somebody sitting in UK. I mean, this was unthinkable that a startup would hire, say, its head of marketing
Right.
uh, in London.
Right.
Now I'm just coming across a situation where this one is just coming up, and they are hiring. You see, had one person sitting in there because uh, the imperatives are very very different. So
Mhm.
how do you manage from from culture standpoint? How do you manage from mental health standpoint? How do you manage, you see, from motivation standpoint? These are all very new kind of challenges, and uh, and I've been thinking, you see, a lot about it. And some days, say, I'll write an article because I'm seeing this thing kind of played out in my just in front of me. And I used to be a very strong proponent that your core team, engineering team at least, should either be all in in Silicon Valley or all in India, but in one place, all the key people.
Mhm.
And because that leads to innovation and stuff. But now I think we are in a new world.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you were talking about when everything is becoming virtual, how does one run a organization, right? I mean, it might not be too far fetched to imagine that you may not even have people. You could have avatars essentially responding, and they could be sitting anywhere. So just to sort of move on to a related point, an adjacent point. Clearly, I think you made some very good points about the idea about how management of organizations would change. You are a VC and Vaibhav is a lawyer. It used to be that VCs used to operate in Silicon Valley. It was a very nice, clubby, kind of a cozy group on Sand Hill Road. And then, you talked about increasingly the importance of working with governments and policies and all that. So they started operating out in Washington, D.C. and other places. How would you see the role of VCs themselves evolve if the underlying company and the trends that are impacting everybody, government, societies, customers, do you see a change in the way the VC business itself will change?
Huh. You know, uh, you know, this is the one thing VC industry is very bad. It is at self-reflection.
Okay.
Uh, you like things to continue the way they are, you see, forever. you know, you know, uh, I have not thought about this issue, frankly. I really have not thought about it. I think one thing that is fundamentally changed in the VC community is this, that there used to be life cycle funds. They invested in the company in the beginning, and then they on progressive rounds they stayed with you, and then you see they took you to the IPO and stuff like that. What has happened is that there are no more life cycle funds. You see, don't have any more sort of relevance
Right.
at the growth stage. It's the giants like SoftBank that are completely redefining that space.
Yeah.
At the seed stage, at the entry stage, what has happened is that all the established VCs have become so big, nobody wants to write to see a small 1 million, $2 million check anymore.
Right.
So whole bunch of funds like Monte Vista, I see, and have come up all over the world.
Mhm.
So this in stage specific, VC stuff that has come up all over, and I would suggest to you that it's the seed stage where very hands-on involvement you see of VC takes place with the entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
That would not be a global business.
Got it.
That would by definition be a local business,
Local high touch business.
local, very high touch kind of a business, because the judgment, massive amount of judgment is involved, that in the context, in the circumstance, in this area, this entrepreneur, and does it make sense to invest in and stuff like that. So
Right.
that would always remain some. I think the Series A and up to Series A,
Beyond will
Series
see a
C,
change.
that probably could become global, and it is becoming global actually. SoftBank is, no matter
Global.
where you are, SoftBank is there.
Yeah. And Vaibhav, for you from a law firm perspective, do you see a similar kind of a change, or you see global law firms or locally integrated
Law
one?
firms and lawyers are worse than VCs. They're not there. They are so resistant to change. Last 100 years, if you see, you will find nothing much change. Just that people were writing memos earlier, now they are using computers. They are very, very technology resistant. But having said it, I actually made a statement in my firm a couple of years ago, and I'm making it now again, that in next 5 years, 50% of what we do as law firm, right, as lawyers, will be done by computers.
Mhm.
Our business will get disrupted drastically, and this is a great opportunity for legal tech firms.
Mhm.
In US, I'm already seeing large law firms setting up 100% subsidiary of technology companies
Right.
to take care of their customer problem by developing technologies. The law firm business will evolve. They will no longer become a simple legal advisor. They will become a solution provider. They will also start seeing merging happening.
Interesting.
Uh,
Yeah.
you're going to see different things. For example, I'll just say, I'll give our own example. We is an experiment came up with a new concept of strategic legal practice. Strategic legal practice means that all these McKinsey's and all the consultants use data as a base, as an input to decide what the strategy should be. We believe that even law can be used as a base to decide what your business strategy is. Right. So, and especially in certain industry, it may not be in all industry, but in disruptive industry, in industry where people are playing in gray area of law, right? Whether it's the Airbnbs of the world or Ubers of the world, where Facebooks of the world, where things are, laws are not there in place to take care of those things, right? Now, when you use law as a strategy, it can give you a very strong competitive advantage.
Got it.
So legal practice is something we have just developed, right? So we all have to evolve now, and this is next 5 years. You will see a huge transformation in legal field coming in.
Okay. So I think this has been an interesting sort of a journey that we've taken on the last 45 plus minutes, starting from implications of the interconnected world. We went through to AI, through IoT, the impact on 5G, 6G, quantum computing, the world of VCs and legal and management itself. One final set of points that I would love to get your views on, relating to how do you see cross-border activity now evolve? Because there are geopolitical issues on, like we talked about, the data issues, legal issues, and all of that, cyber security, sovereignty, and issues of that kind. How do you see those changes or those be impacted by technology? I mean, today, there was a point I think that Venk also made about data localization and all of it. But when increasingly countries are becoming protectionist or at least becoming more insular than otherwise, do you see any impact on businesses as they now transact, whether it's on e-commerce, whether it is on data itself, whether it is on goods and services, for small companies, large companies, and so on? Would you see any change taking place there, Vaibhav?
Yeah. So I so today the trend of all countries are trying to be less global or basically on anti-globalization.
Mm-hmm.
And the trend which technology is pushing is globalization, where geographies don't matter.
Correct.
So there is going to be a classic dispute or classic fight between what government is trying to do and what technology is trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And in past, we always seen technology wins. So I believe, right, that while in macro level where government are looking, especially in certain industry where government are very looking inwards, right, and trying to get data localization or trying to get 5G infrastructure security and other stuff, which they will continue. But overall, and when you look at the cross-border aspects, I think it will even accelerate than what it is today.
Will become bigger.
Yeah, it will become bigger. Yeah, the companies will actually, as Venk was saying, right? You will have a CMO sitting in London, the CEO sitting in Silicon Valley, and you will have CTO sitting in India, right? So you will have those kind of situations where company will not be. You won't be able to say this company is located in Silicon Valley or this company is located in Bangalore or this company is headquartered in so and so. You really won't have any ability to say that.
So the domicile itself will become kind of a
Yes.
variable.
And that will
If
that
Elon
will
Musk has his way, it could be in Mars. So that's also that's also possible. With all this increasing technology invasion happening, right? And we're talking about in the context of IoT. You've got this Alexa, you've got Google Home, you've got all of these guys invading our homes. You've got watches, you've got all kinds of devices, right? Which are all effectively going to play a role in this so-called IoT matrix world. And then, and they're getting into spaces, let's say, like health, for example, monitoring your health and fitness and areas like that. How do you see that impacting behaviors of people, behaviors of companies? You talked of self-regulatory organizations and all of it. But do you see any particular industry or sector, let's say like health or agri, which are very important national level issues? How do you see those get impacted?
Hey, Sanjay,
Yes, sir.
before we discuss this, I think Vaibhav made a point, you see, about the distributed kind of thing, and you talked about companies you see all over, and this boundaries kind of getting blurred and stuff.
Right.
Very interesting debate going on in India right now.
Mhm.
Uh, Sanjeev Bikhchandani actually wrote about it,
Yes, yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
and I have a lot of respect for him. I have
Mhm.
a lot of respect for him, but the point that he made was that Indian companies incorporating in Singapore and Delaware is like East India Company colonization happening all over again.
Right.
And I found that thing to be really, really strange.
Mhm.
I think the reason that people are going to Singapore and Delaware is very simple, because they don't find operating under Indian laws
Yeah.
to be as globally this thing. It doesn't enable their global commerce, you see, as well as some of the laws in these other countries do.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on fixing that problem,
Yeah.
now you are focusing on, you say, hey, how can we become more restrictive? How can we make it even more difficult
Yeah.
uh, for companies to set up? I thought it was really, really
Yeah.
a
And a
bizarre
good
kind of
point, right?
problem.
Good point. I agree with the point you're making. Effectively, the regulations and tax policies and all of those need to change. And I suppose it's a good time to bring Vaibhav in on the issue of taxes.
Venk and I, we worked very closely for startup policy. What government came with startup policy actually was hard work by Venk, right? And
Yeah.
supported by some of us, right? Where we addressed this particular issue. We talked about why companies go and put their headquarters outside India, right? And why India will become kind of a cost plus development center, right? We address those issues and we said that there are three areas we need to address, right? Foreign exchange regulation, Foreign Exchange Management Act, which is exchange control regulation, Indian Companies Act, and third is the tax. These are the three areas we need to address. We kind of gave them on platter what they need to do.
Yes.
And credit to them, they picked something up, but
But
not
that's the way change happens in India, slowly. What
but
you
but a lot of credit to Venk. What startup policy you see today, I would give 80% credit to Venk of his efforts and his push to the government.
indeed.
Hey, I should get Vaibhav on more of forums with me.
Exactly.
Uh, he will say he'll say all the good things about me.
Absolutely. We will discuss who the PR person here. I thought you're a lawyer, man. Wonderful. So that, I think we're pretty much out of time now. I think we're really approaching the end. So any closing remarks? Because from my standpoint, I think this has been very interesting and illustrative of the challenges that and debates that we will keep having, going forward. And there are so many issues to talk about, and right from the state of companies, their management and cross-border and policy and security and ethics and humanness and all of that. Any closing remarks from first Venk, then Vaibhav?
I think this is a exceptional opportunity for India,
Mhm.
and I think is some enlightened approach to how they handle data, and
Right,
how they enable startups to flourish in India.
right,
I think that will define how powerful, how successful, how prosperous India gets.
right.
And I think it's extremely critical
Mhm.
that India uses it, not a prickly kind of attitude that, hey, we are big, you see, and we'll do what Europe is doing, we'll do what China is doing. That's absolutely the wrong approach.
Uh-huh.
Their challenges were different.
Mhm.
Our challenges and our opportunities are very, very different,
Mhm.
and we should maximize that thing. So I think our encouraging, you see, more and more startups to take hold, and having, you see, a very sophisticated data localization policy. For instance, why should I have a very simple solution to this. Instead of forcing people to do localized data, why don't you force these companies to say they'll provide access to any Indian startup that wants access to Google data or Facebook data, WhatsApp data? It doesn't matter where they are.
Right.
But if you're collecting data from India, no matter where your data center is, every Indian will have a right to access that data. You set up some parameters that you have to pay this much, they have to all those things, but the data should be available to everyone. Now you are setting a completely different paradigm of how data alliances, and this is a very profound point that Vaibhav made about data alliances and data wars and all those things. India has to take the intellectual lead on that thing. You cannot follow Europe and China and do the same kind of a restrictive thing that they are doing. Our
Right.
challenge, our opportunities are very different.
The challenges are different. Our approach, therefore, should be different. Vaibhav? And
So
we'll end.
I believe that COVID was very bad thing, but it has given some silver linings, right? And one of the thing which it is giving is giving India a great opportunity. Indian startups a great opportunity to become like startups in Silicon Valley or anywhere in the world, right? Because no longer where you are located becomes matters. So India should change the mindset of being service provider, being like a cost plus development center, and start thinking about what I'm sitting in Silicon Valley. Never sitting in Silicon Valley, what kind of products I would make, what kind of things I would make for global world, right? What kind of issues I will address. So while we are seeing some of the changes already happening in India, in that sense, that you see a lot of startup focusing on problems for the world, but I still see the mindset is more service mindsets or more mindsets in terms of becoming cost plus basis. So that mindset of people who are available, if that changes, then I think India can have a great.
Clearly, I think that is changing rather rapidly. With more and more companies now creating products and solutions for the Indian market. Nevertheless, I think we've come to the complete end of our time. It's 9 p.m. Local time here in India. All that remains for me to do is to thank Venk very much, thank Vaibhav very much for taking time and participating in this very, very interesting, exciting conversation. This will be I think, foundation on which a lot other conversations we can have in subsequent times to build upon all of this. So thank you all very much, and I wish you a wonderful IoT Matrix session going forward. Thank you.
And
Thank you,
thanks for having
Sanjay.
us.
Thank you, Venk.
Thank you. So I will now hand it off to Venki. Is it
All
Venki
right.
now? Venki, will you take over?
Thanks.
Hey, thanks a lot, Sanjay. That was a very insightful discussion, especially for me. I'm a big believer of 5G and Vaibhav. One of the things that you did not talk about is the report, the highlights of your report. I was just maybe that's a question to you right now. We can take one question before we can move to the next session. But thanks, Venk. I mean, this was outstanding. I know it was very early for you. And thank you, Vaibhav, for joining us.
So Venki, you have already read our 5G paper. So we have written a 5G paper addressing the business and the legal issues in 5G. If anybody wants it, feel free to just ask us. We'll be happy to send it to you.
Yeah. So I think what will happen is probably on the IoTMatrix site, perhaps.
You can publish it. Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you, Vaibhav. We will do that right away.
Thank you so much.
I think it was simply superb. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venki.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.